Good morning. This is Film Fanatic coming at you live again. It is Tuesday at 10:30. I can't believe it's actually snowing right now. It's crazy. I just got a text a little bit ago from a friend of mine who lives down in New Hampshire. So she said, "Yeah, it's snowing down here," and then 10 minutes later, it starts snowing here. Crazy. But big things this week. I'm really excited. I did a big show on Anthony Papa, who I did a show about Anthony Papa probably about a month ago, and Anthony Papa is he's a legend in the world of electronic music, especially when it comes to the world of house music, progressive house. He's an Australian DJ, producer. He's a pretty multifaceted artist. He's mostly well known as a DJ, but he's a producer. He produces other artists. He he runs multiple labels, record labels. Does remixes of other people's work. He also does a lot of original music. But his main thing that he's known for is DJing, and he is a legend. I think when it comes to progressive house music, he's like the best guy on the planet. And I have been a fan of his for years and years and years. So I'm getting a chance to go see him play on Friday in Boston, and I'm super fucking excited. So that's I'm super pumped because he's one of my all-time favorite electronic artists. When it comes to house music, that music is when it comes to dance music. I love all kinds of dance music, but that's my favorite music to dance to, and it's his work, Anthony Papa's work, is a huge, huge influence, major, major influence on my band Quantum when it comes to our music that has a much more that has a house kind of vibe or dance vibe. Major, he's the big. I mean, there's so many other electronic artists that I can include in that list too, but Anthony Papa's definitely the guy who is like the main inspiration. So yeah, he's just amazing. So I'm really excited. I never thought I'd get a chance to really see him live. So yeah, well, I'm gonna go down on Friday, go to the show, and then have to get up a little bit early the next day to come back, which will be a little bit of a grind, but I think it's gonna be worth it. So very excited, and I'll definitely do a show about the experience. Maybe even getting a chance to meet him and stuff. But so yeah, very excited. So, but today's show is going to be on the stunning conclusion to this past weekend of the movies I got at Opera House Video. I went there on Saturday, this past Saturday, and got a little stack of movies. So this latest batch of videos that I've been posting are all pretty much about those four movies. I got some good movies. I got the first one I did, and I'm gonna be uploading it today. Probably after I'm done here, it's all done and up. Well, it's all uploaded, but I have to do some work to it first. First movie I saw. Well, actually, no. Wait, I should back that up. What was the other movie? That wasn't the first movie I saw. I'm trying to back up as to where I started here. Oh yeah, The Last Beyond, and that was the first movie I watched. I didn't make it all the way through that movie. That was kind of a disappointing movie, and it's kind of a more or less a modern western, I guess if you want to call it that. I did upload a show about that review, and then I saw Bones and All with Timothy Chalamet, and awesome movie, really really good. I was really really surprised. Came out and I had heard about that film, but I was totally blown away with it by it. Really awesome movie. And I did the show, recorded the show yesterday, and it probably will be on the channel pretty soon today. That was the second movie I watched. And then I watched Lord of Illusions, the the Clive Barker movie. Really, really cool movie. Really, really cool movie. I was really impressed with it. I Yeah, it's been years since I'd seen it. Years, years and years, and I was very surprised. It was kind of like watching it for the first time again. So I just recorded that show, and that will be coming up some at some point this week. And today's show, this is the final video, and today's show is on a movie that I did hear about, and that is Juror number two. It's actually directed by Clint Eastwood, and it came out. It just came out on DVD. It's directed by Clint Eastwood, and it's interesting. I kind of was on the fence a little bit about whether I was going to review this movie because there's certain things about this movie that are not very good. That are not good, not very good. But then I started to actually kind of enjoy this movie, and I was surprised. It actually has Juror number two. Again, it's the latest Clint Eastwood movie. Clint Eastwood is almost 100 years old, I think now. Like it's insane. And I think as he's gotten older, I mean his work has declined a little bit. Some of his films have been, for the last 20 years or so, some of his films have definitely been kind of hit or miss. One or two that I had seen or seen in passing were actually pretty good. But his early work, is incredible. I mean, The Unforgiven, for instance, one of the greatest westerns ever made, if not the greatest western ever made. Play Misty for Me, his which I think was his debut, which is a total fucking masterpiece. Amazing film. I did a show on that a while ago. Absolute Power, another Clint Eastwood movie that he stars in and also directed or starred in. Um, Both those films, Absolute Power and Unforgiven, starred Gene Hackman as well, who rests in peace. Absolute Power is one of my all-time favorite movies. I put that movie on my top 5 or 10 lists. I absolutely love that movie. That movie is a comfort movie for me. I've seen that movie so many freaking times. Just an incredible movie. Um, and Gone Baby Gone, I think it's the boxing movie. I might have the title wrong, which is actually with Hilary Swank. Very, very, very good movie. Super depressing, but really great movie. Mystic River, super awesome movie. I mean, he's made some killer fucking movies, and he's starred in some killer movies, of course. But he's directed some like really good movies, and so he's an iconic character or a kind of iconic figure in the world of directors and like when it comes to American cinema. But then as a character actor, all the classic spaghetti westerns, all of his iconic work with Sergio Leone, and all the great action movies that he's done. So, In the Line of Fire, one of the greatest movies ever with John Malkovich. That movie is such a masterpiece. So, so many great films. But he's had, as he's gotten older, of course, he's had some films that are not really that great. And I did hear that this movie was coming out, Juror number two, and I was pretty skeptical of watching it. And then I saw it at Opera House Video, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll just rent it. Fuck it. The cast for this movie is actually really, really good. Like, it's a really good cast. Um, Kiefer Sutherland is in this film. Cedric Yarborough, who is really great in this movie, actually. Chris Messina, Toni Collette is in this film. She's an amazing actress. I didn't know she was in this movie. Um, it's got a pretty unbelievable cast. It's kind of surprising. Also, J.K. Simmons, really great actor. He's also in this film. And the actor that was in this movie that I am a huge fan of, but I did not know he was in this movie, is Nicholas Hoult, who is, I think, he's such an incredible actor. I think he's one of those guys that, like, you know, he can do any kind of genre film. I mean, he was the first movie I ever saw Nicholas Hoult in was Fury Road, the Mad Max film, which is a fucking masterpiece, and he is so great in that. But he's so versatile as an actor, and I think he is just fantastic. I mean, he was fantastic in Nosferatu, so many great movies. And he's one of those actors, like, he's a young British actor, but he really kind of transforms himself for each movie where you don't recognize him. And he's a real great actor. And I had no idea that he was in this Clint Eastwood movie. So I was like, what the hell? I'll get it. So, and this film is more or less, it's kind of like an old school crime drama film. And it's a murder mystery film. And I think, that kind of genre, like the mystery films, the thriller genre, I mean, back in the day, especially, but Clint Eastwood is a master in that genre, I think, as a director. Mystic River and Absolute Power, I mean, just incredible thrillers. Play Misty for Me. That movie is just amazing. So I was enticed by it, but I got it on DVD, and one of the things that, like, I usually do when I get a DVD, especially if it's a movie I hadn't seen, or maybe even in the case of it's a movie I never even heard of. With this movie, I did hear about it, but it's always kind of a bad sign or indication, and it's kind of a funny thing. But when you take the box off the shelf of a movie, and you look at it, and there's like zero reviews. There's nothing. You get the indication like, okay, this movie went direct to video, so it's probably not very good. But the other thing that's funny about I do this all the time when I get a movie, and especially when I buy a movie, is I will like look at the general reviews. And a lot of the times you're like, wait, I never heard of this guy or girl. This I never heard of this reviewer. I've never heard of this magazine, and it can be a lot of like bullshit. And then sometimes you'll see, a pretty reliable source giving a review for the film, and it looks really good or what have you. But with Juror number two, there was no reviews. So I was like, oh geez. And I kind of thought that this movie was probably going to be a total clunker and not very good. But I love, I'm such a fan of Nicholas Hoult that I was like, well, I'm going to give this a chance. And I was really impressed and really surprised that Toni Collette was in this film because I'm a huge fan of her work too. She's an amazing, amazing actress. So I watched this the other night, and I will say that, like, in a lot of ways, particularly around the script, this is not a very good movie. It's a little bit hard to watch. It's it's very straightforward. It's very it kind of, especially the first act of the film, it feels like you're watching kind of like a run of the mill, TV courtroom drama movie. It does feel like super kind of vanilla and straightforward and like really predictable, and and some of the dialogue is really so simple and generic that it's a little bit hard to take. But as the film kind of opens up a little bit, and you're starting to see that, more or less what the movie's about, I was kind of enjoying it. I felt myself kind of getting pulled into it, and I'm like, huh. I was a little bit surprised of where this film was going, and then I was kind of interested. Even though, again, the dialogue was kind of shitty, and it was like really, kind of paint by numbers. Clearly not. When you look at, the other classic, the classic movies that Eastwood's responsible for, definitely as far as that goes, like the script and everything, not even close to being on par. But there was something about the story and kind of where the story shifted, and kind of where the narrative of the story kind of, you know, uh, the direction, more or less where the direction of the film was going, that I found kind of interesting. And I was like, huh. And I found that that part was not necessarily predictable. And kind of the whole tone of the film changed for me. And again, at one point, before I noticed that it was kind of shifting for me, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get all the way through this movie. I was almost like, I was getting close to being like, I don't know if I can sit through this film for an hour and a half. But then, after about 35 minutes or so, suddenly I got interested in mainly kind of the story, and being a little bit surprised as to where the story was going. And it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely like, in a lot of ways, a straightforward, standardized kind of like courtroom drama film. But it's also a thriller. And when it kind of introduced a little bit more of that kind of thriller aspect, and a little bit more of a murder mystery film kind of a thing, I kind of got interested. And then I was like, okay, I think I want to watch this, and I continued on to watch this film, and I actually kind of like this movie. I actually thought it was, you know, if you can kind of sit through some of the crappy dialogue and the real, kind of vanilla way that the story is told, the story is actually pretty good. It's actually kind of an interesting story. And the premise of the story is Nicholas Holt plays this guy who is, he has a family. He's about to be a father, and he is a recovering alcoholic who had gotten into a very, very bad car accident in previous years, and has, gone through a really, really tough time. And he met his now wife, and they built this life together, and they were gonna have they're gonna have a baby together, and things are looking really good for this guy, Nick, played by Nicholas Holt. But then he gets called on to do jury duty, and the case is about this kind of this domestic violence dispute that really gets really, really bad, where the husband in this kind of domestic partnership is gets charges pressed against him for the murder of his wife. And there are all these witnesses and accounts of where they would, always fight in public, and all these things. And then she ends up dying one of the nights that they are seen together, and he is, basically charged with murder. And so that's what the case is. But as the case kind of unfolds, you realize Nicholas Holt's character is not really what you think he is, and his life is really, really, or his actions are like directly related to the story, and it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I actually kind of enjoyed this movie. Again, the writing, and I will almost use it as a little bit of a disclaimer, but or a kind of a warning. The way the movie starts and the way we're introduced to these characters and what have you, it's kind of like a 12 Angry Men kind of a vibe too. But like, again, the writing is pretty bad. But sit with it for a while, sit with it, and I actually enjoyed it, and I thought the ending for this film was really great. I actually really liked it. And again, it's very generic in a lot of ways, but the story is cool, and I actually enjoyed this movie. And I kind of want to. Part of me kind of wants to see it again. You know, it definitely has like a movie of the week kind of vibe to it, but I like a lot of television movies. You know, back in the day, so I don't know. It's kind of a cool movie. I kind of enjoyed it, and I thought it was like I liked the ideas that this movie kind of presented in the context of like a thriller and a courtroom drama. You know, it was cool. I was impressed with the story. Again, not on par with like The Unforgiven, but the story was actually pretty good. So I would recommend this movie, and it came out this year. Just came out. Juror number two. Chris now Nicholas Holt is written and directed by Clint Eastwood. So, and he's almost 100 years old. So, not bad for somebody who's almost 100 years old. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.